So, I mean, talking about the Dauphin County Prison, I know it's was a major part of your campaign. So, I mean, here we are, well into, you being a Dauphin County Commissioner. I would love to know at this point, what is the thing you're most proud of when it comes to Dauphin County Prison at this point?
Well, I'm proud of a lot of the progress we're making, and I think bringing more dignity to everyone there. I think I've certainly gained a lot of knowledge and understanding of the prison that I didn't have when I was running. Certainly become much more aware of our needs for recruiting COs and just having a better work-life balance for our correction officers, better work environment, and certainly a lot of the issues that I ran on, trying to put feet to that.
Right, and so I know, getting commissioners, getting COs in the door, recruitment and retention has been a big thing. How are things looking over there when it looks like staffing?
Looking really good now. We sat down and we did an entire marketing campaign to try to recruit, and we're in the middle of that right now, and we've seen really good results from that, an increase in traffic for applicants. And we have a lot of people, you have to go through training before you can become a correction officer. So, we also did some analysis on, like, when we think of a funnel, where we lose people along the way and how we can do better about having faster turnaround time. We're in an economy where you can find a job pretty quick if you're, diligent about it. And when you have to wait maybe 6 weeks for processes and things to happen. So we've done some things to kind of streamline some of that, which has helped keep people in the funnel for a little longer, or ensure that if they're qualified that they can, find their way into that role. The marketing campaign we're doing is also seeking all kinds of different ways of connecting with different communities to try to ensure that we also have, a diverse correction officer population.
And what is staffing looking like? How many officers are we down right now?
48 correction officers down right now, which is improvement from when I got here. I think we were in the 60s. So we're making improvement. I think, part of that is retirees, part of that is people leaving and having to, replace those people. We're always going to have some turnover in that role, but I think we'd love to get to a point to where we're fully staffed, and I think it's possible to get there. I think it might take, another campaign after this campaign, but we'll see what this campaign yields.
And so tell me a little bit about that debt relief. I see the number over here. Must be something you're pretty proud of. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I'm incredibly proud of it because I think, it's attached to an old policy that existed at Dauphin County Prison where people would pay to stay, a daily pay to stay fee. That was, at the time it was made, I think built as a deterrent. At least that was maybe some of the reasons given. I don't think that it served such a thing, and I don't know that saddling people with debt that are already probably in a financially difficult position is helpful. Just to be very clear on the debt that we forgave is only room and board debt. It is not court fees or fines. It's not restitution. It's none of that. We've had these fees on the books for decades, so much so that they're actually not on our books anymore. But what it does is it re-shows the community. It acknowledges that we are very committed to reentry. We're investing millions of dollars in reentry. We're for the sake of ensuring that people, as they come out of life in incarceration, they're able to enter into communities. Because what we know is that when we invest in reentry, we lower recidivism rate. They're less likely to come back into the prison, and we make safer communities that way. And so the ability for you to purchase a vehicle or enter into a loan or an agreement for rental space, all of these things, your credit, all of that is attached to your ability to enter back into society and contribute. And so I think this is a massive step in the right direction.
So can you explain, from those who may not understand, the pay to stay policy that previously existed? So if I was someone that went into the Dauphin County Prison, I would have to pay to be there?
Yeah, my understanding is at least $10 a day. I'm not 100% sure because some of it gets fuzzy in different seasons of it, but at least $10 a day you would pay to stay. And that adds up when you think about being there for potentially 2 years, for example. That's $6,000. I mean, I've talked to 2 people since relieving the debt. One had $33,000 in room and board debt. The other had $11,000. So when you think about the relief that provides for these individuals, and ultimately the room and board was paid for by taxpayers. Like, taxpayers paid for that. Like it's one of the things that we're mandated to provide as a county, as a county jail. Like, that's part of the county code. Like, we have to provide that. And so these fees are just really, I think, challenging for me to see that we did the work to amend that policy back in, I believe, the beginning of 2023. We changed that policy because we know that's a punitive policy that's not helping solve the problem. But we didn't really undo the effects of that. And so this is, I think, a step in the right direction to undo some of the things that policy has created. And now we have a one-time booking fee of $125, but that's a one-time fee. It's not a reoccurring fee.
And you said that, I mean, reentry is a huge part of, making our communities safer. What else are you guys doing to help with, reentry back into our communities?
We have all kinds of resources here that are helping with reentry, whether that's, connecting people to resources that exist. We have CJAB, which is, Criminal Justice Advisory Board, looking at different things to help with reentry. We did a reentry walk with a bunch of our partners that are doing reentry work just a few months ago. So there's a lot of people we're in collaboration with that are working on that. A lot of grants that we help either procure or sign off on, in the sense of going after different grants. So there's all kinds of different programs. Some are in a pilot phase, some are more, they've been here, but attaching people to other services that exist within the county. I mean, we obviously have like a drug and alcohol department that, we might want to get someone connected to drug and alcohol resources if addiction was part of their story and they're coming back out. We also have diversion courts, which is part of reentry too, I think, which is, we have drug and alcohol court, or I think it has a different name now, but it was initially labeled as that. We have, I think, mental health court. So we have different ways that people can enter into the court system and be diverted from either prison, or as they're coming out of prison and they might have made a mistake following that, ways to ensure that like recidivism isn't the only answer to their particular challenge. And so ultimately, to put all that in a under one umbrella, as we're trying to get creative about solving the challenges of justice and equity in our community, and ensuring that people are given dignity, we recognize prison isn't for everybody. It's not the answer for every single crime that exists in Dauphin County. There's much more redemptive ways to go about solving these challenges that make our community legitimately safer. And we want to explore those. We want to ensure that we're doing our best to use those other tools in our toolbox. Incarceration is a tool, but sometimes it's a tool historically that's been overused.
And another thing I know you're proud of is getting inmates outside more. I know you had spoken a little bit about specifically Labor Day. Tell me what the efforts have looked like to get more inmates outdoor time.
Yeah, so there are, just to be clear, there is a block that has more regular outdoor time, but throughout the prison, that's not been something experienced, especially on Main Side, which is where most of our inmates are housed. On Labor Day, one of the things we've identified is that part of the challenge to get people outside is full staffing. We're not fully staffed, so we can't get outside. It just creates a safety risk and concern, and we have to be mindful about that. That's part of why I've put so much energy and emphasis into recruiting, because I think once we get fully staffed, we'll be able to have a much better, opportunity to get people outside. But on holidays, correction officers get overtime pay, and therefore we tend to see full staff numbers on holidays. So on Labor Day, we were fully staffed, and inmates went outside for the first time in 2 decades at Dauphin County Prison. So all but 2 blocks got outside that day, and the 2 blocks that didn't get outside got indoor rec in our gym. So that's a massive improvement from where we've historically been, and I think we just have to build on that. And part of building on that is beginning with holidays. I've spoke with prison admin, and we're committed to getting them out on holidays, assuming we're fully staffed on those holidays. And then outside of the holidays, getting our staff numbers up so that we can make that a regular occurrence.
So when you say 2 decades, I mean, that's an incredible amount of time. Do you mean 2 decades specifically on Labor Day, or just in general overall?
In general overall.
What does that mean? I think for me, I have a hard time conceptualizing. So in 20 years, inmates have not been able to go outside at Dauphin County Prison?
Most inmates, the majority. Yeah. I mean, I believe we have one block that's able to get outside, and the majority of our inmates, were they to go out, if they were to be there. I mean, I've talked to people when I walk the block that have been there for 2 years that maybe haven't been outside unless they're being transported in some capacity. That's part of the challenges that exist there, and as you can imagine, that doesn't help someone who's dealing with mental health challenges. That, not getting outside, if anyone, I think most of us have an intimate connection with that now, given COVID, you know what I mean? And the challenges that existed with isolation and feeling kind of confined. And certainly incarcerated people are going to feel confined, but unnecessarily. We have yards, we have spaces, we just don't have the staff to run it. And I think part of it is also now we have, I think, the will to think creatively about like our holidays and things like that, and to really push for this as a priority. And so I'm thankful that the prison board has joined me in supporting that, and we've pushed for that, and here's where we are. And I see it as something to celebrate, but I also see it as a very small victory. There's only so many holidays in a year. If that's all that people are able to get outside, yeah, it's an improvement, but it's not enough. And so getting fully staffed is going to have a big impact on the quality of life for inmates and I think for COs.
And have you had any feedback, or have you heard any feedback from families or inmates about being able to get outside?
Look, the inmates I talk to want to get outside, and I think I've talked to a few since they've got out, and they're excited they got out. But they also know that's, in some sense, a drop in the bucket. Like, am I going to wait 2 decades to go outside again? Right now, people aren't being incarcerated for 2 decades at Dauphin County Prison. I think there's some skepticism around progress as a flash in the pan, or is it actually going to be consistent change? And I'm committed to consistent change, and I understand that some of that feedback is, well, cool, you got this one thing, and I think that's fair. That's exactly what I would say if I was in their shoes too. So I'm just going to keep pushing, and I think our staff is committed to actualizing this, but we're also committed to safety. Being a prison, we have a high call to ensure that we have the proper ratios so correction officers can be safe and ensure that inmates are remaining safe and secure as well. And so we have to do it in a step-by-step manner.
And I know you said staffing is a major part of getting inmates outside more consistently, but is there anything else that goes into getting them outside?
Yeah, so I mean, some of our blocks needed updated. Part of the reason we weren't able to do this right away is because there was some security concerns with fencing that we had to fix. We had just a couple pieces of fencing that had to be fixed. We had some cameras that needed to be upgraded. And then we also had just to upgrade some staff on training, because we haven't been outside in a while. So making sure they have all the resources they need, know how to access the cameras when they need to, and that kind of stuff. So there was a process to getting outside. There were certainly other barriers outside of just staffing. But the staffing is the biggest piece. A lot of the challenges we have in our prison right now, if we can solve our staffing challenges, it puts us in a better position to solve those problems. I don't want to say people are making excuses because of staffing, because staffing is a legitimate problem. But when we think about solving other problems, it's usually the first challenge to solving that problem is we don't have enough staff to do that. So, once we get to full staff, we can begin to assess how we can solve some of the other real challenges in there.
Right, and so I only have a few more questions for you, I promise. But I wanted to talk with you, about that power outage. I know it wasn't a full, loss of power, but it did kick out some AC units, causing inmates to not have air conditioning on some pretty hot days. What has kind of gone into looking at what happened there and reforming that so it doesn't happen again in the future?
Yeah, I guess I'll start here. That was a very unique circumstance. Someone was digging and hit our power line. That just doesn't happen, and it took some time to assess that even was what happened, because We had multiple buildings affected by it that the county owned, and then the power came back on when the provider sent the power back after the initial kind of stoppage of power. And then it was hard to understand initially just what we were working with. Does that make sense? And then it took some time to get a generator and get a transfer switch. There was a lot of, it was a very unique challenge that we were enduring during that. We've learned a lot through it, though. We've got some changes to our emergency plans because of that. Like some things we've noticed that we can tighten up and make better. But ultimately, yeah, I was in the prison. Other prison board members were there as well. It was certainly a challenge. Yeah.
And I know, throughout the course of this interview, we've talked about a lot of things, some highs, some lows, even with some of the things that you're proud of. Can you tell me what more you believe still needs to be done over at the Dauphin County Prison?
Look, I think continued improvement. I'll list two things that, I'm passionate about. Our prisoners communicate on tablets, and we've had a lot of problems with that provider that we want to see improved. And we're in the process of, what that's going to look like. There's also been some changes federally that impact that, but we want to ensure that inmates have the ability to communicate with their loved ones. And at times when I'm walking through the prison, a lot of inmates are having issues with their tablets that are affecting their ability to communicate with people outside, or even their ability to have access to things on the tablet that they would have for review, whether that's legal documents or other things. And we need to make sure we're doing everything we can to ensure those tablets are working, and that we're doing our best to provide those. The other aspect I would say is food. I think, I want to see our food improve. I think when people are well fed, I know when I'm well fed, I'm in a much better mood. So I guess I just say that, in the sense of, I've been in there enough and seen meals and heard from inmates, and I know we could do our food service better without, I think, in my opinion, without a ton more financially. There's some creative ways we can do some things there. So I'm continuing to kind of explore that and see how we can have better dietary options available in the prison. So those are a couple big things. And then I'll also say this, a feasibility study is being done to see just like this is an old facility, and part of the challenges is our facility, and so determining what is the life of this facility remaining, and how do we do our best to upgrade where we need to upgrade, because there's a lot of upgrades that need to be done in there, or where that wouldn't maybe be prudent to put that money into upgrading something. And so those are things I'm very interested in from an infrastructure standpoint. So there's a lot to do is really the short answer, but I'm committed to trying to just continue to elevate all the aspects in there.
Right, and I know you're not one to say, hey, I did this all by myself, but I would love to ask you, you ran with prison reform as a large part of your campaign, pretty unique, and we've now got inmates out for the first time in 2 decades. What kind of role do you believe you played in all of this?
Look, you use the word we, I use the word we. It's a team effort, it's not just me. Certainly there's things that I want to see and I have a vision for, but that doesn't happen in a vacuum. Just, that happens with coalition building, sitting down and talking with other people, expressing why this is going to really help. And so, the only victory lap I'm doing is that I'm excited that inmates got outside, with that. Like, the victory lap I'm doing is, seeing pictures sent to me from the cameras of inmates outside for the first time, and like an internal victory lap of like, this is good, and that's something I think all of us should be celebrating. And I wouldn't even just say elected officials. I think people who prioritize this as an issue and talk about it, and all the groups and activists that have put time and energy into this, and and all the individuals who turned out and voted for an issue that everyone said no one cared about. You know, I think everybody should be doing a victory lap.
So, well, those are all the questions I had. Is there anything else you wanted to add maybe that I didn't ask?
I'm good.
Fabulous.